All right, Jared Leto, you're dismissed. By society turns him into a sociopathic murderer. Well, we finally got it, everybody. This Joker standalone origin story that we've been talking about for over a year plus is finally here. I, like most of us, was highly skeptical. Go back and watch any of the State of the DCEUs that me and Durbin have done. I don't think we've seen of itself. I was never on board for a standalone Joker film that was not in the DCEU. They announced this during a time when it really seemed like Warner Brothers didn't know what the hell they were doing with the DC universe. They were going to be doing this movie and this movie and this movie. And oh, by the way, there's this other Joker thing that has nothing to do with any of this. It just seemed weird all around. Then the more you started hearing about it, you started seeing the trailers. It premiered at the film festival and everybody walked out saying it was the movie of the year, Oscar lock, like all this stuff. And my hope started to turn around, and I finally got to see the movie last night. Was that hope worth it, or was all the skepticism worth it? So starting off with the positives, the main thing that I'm going to say, the main thing that anybody is going to say regarding this movie is that Joaquin Phoenix, he certainly goes for a little bit more off-the-wall, strange stories. Even the big one last year was like, you know, You're Never Really Here, whatever the fuck it was called, I don't remember. The one where he was the bearded guy who was the hitman, I can't remember the name of it, but there was a movie that everybody was hyping up last year that he was very good in, but the story of the movie just didn't really captivate me. That tends to be Joaquin Phoenix's picks, but then he'll do something like Her that's really interesting. Of course, I liked all his previous work in Gladiator. Signs is another big one, but when you get him into it and you go to see this, he's the focus. Every single scene is got him in it. I don't think there's a single scene in this movie that does not have the Joker in it and does not have Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck as the focus of that scene. So he acts like this character was inside of him all along. There's a sex joke in there somewhere. His take on the Joker is classic enough to easily be seen as the Joker and not offend comic book purists, but at the same time there's enough different about it, there's enough unique about it, and there's enough that sets his version apart from all of the other incarnations that we have seen, and very celebrated and protected incarnations like the Heath Ledger take, that nobody will watch this and think that he's trying to copy any of those other incarnations. It's totally his own thing. You feel for the character at certain points, you feel sympathy for the character of Arthur Fleck and all the things that he has to endure, and the fact that this guy just cannot get a break in any aspect of life. And when he starts to turn to the dark side, you kind of want to pull him out of it and be like, no, don't go that route, but at the same time, you see what's putting him there, and you still somehow sympathize with him, even when he's doing really bad things. I'll get into that at the end of this review, but it's a very interesting take on any character. It doesn't matter if it's Joker or not, to have somebody that's just so beaten down by society, and a movie that's trying to tell the story and trying to ask the questions that this movie asks, and you go along this path with Arthur Fleck to a very dark place, and you're captivated the entire way through, and it's all because of Joaquin Phoenix's performance.
This is the last time we'll be meeting.
You don't listen, do you? You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts.
There's certain new elements that he brings to the Joker. I mean, the biggest thing that's always iconic and always the thing, like, what are they going to do? What's this new actor going to bring to this? And that's the laugh. And his version of the laugh is almost in sadness and pain. Like, there's this whole thing that I guess is an actual disorder that some people have, where Arthur Fleck has some kind of a mental disorder that makes him laugh at very inappropriate times, and he even has like one of these little cards. Like, some people that have certain mental disabilities have cards to hand to people saying, hey, please forgive this, it's a mental disability. And he has that with his laugh, where something really awkward or very inappropriate is happening and he can't help himself but laugh, and it's almost to the point where it's pain. It kind of leans in on the themes and the direction they're going for with this character of just this sadness, you know, the tragedy and the comedy of this guy's life. And it's just one of the simple things of the Joker, but at the same time it's one of the most unique takes that they go with this incarnation. So I like that. And it is interesting story-wise to go down this road with this character. You know, I think the Joker is very effective at not having an origin story. That's one of the reasons I was a little bit, not a little bit, prequels all the time. I'm like, do we really need these questions answered? Can't we just speculate. That's part of what makes this character so interesting. But the fact that you do get origins for the Joker sometimes, like the big famous comic The Killing Joke, this movie is very similar in that you go along this path, you see all the pieces put Joker shit. He's, causing chaos. He's getting people on his little Joker squad, and he's, trying to take down the Batman, or trying to take down somebody big that's high up, the rich of the Gotham, and bring them down to our level. That's not what's going on. You see a guy who's trying his best to be a person, trying his best to be a part of this society that just rejects him at every turn, and trying his best to do the right thing as much as he's mentally capable of doing it, and the world, fate, just pits of evil. And it's pretty disturbing. It's disturbing to watch that transpire to...
For my whole life, but I do.
Now, moving on from the titular character, as far as directing, I think Todd Phillips did a damn good job. That was the other thing I was speculative about. You know what I mean? It's Todd Phillips. I mean, that the guy that did the Hangover movies is going to do this serious 80s Martin Scorsese. Shame on me, because the guy can direct, and I'm curious to see him do a lot more movies outside of the comedy genre. All the more eerie and all the more icky and disturbing because of how Todd Phillips chooses to shoot it. You could shoot what happens in this scene 1,000 different ways, but the way that he chooses to shoot it and linger on certain shots and let things breathe to an uncomfortable length in certain aspects, or like slow zooms. You see that a lot in this movie too, just staying on a shot and slowly bringing you burn. This is not an entertaining, like action-packed Joker film. This is not something where you're gonna see a lot of meticulous, slow burn character study of one man's descent into madness, one man's rejection from society that turns into a rejection of society. So if you're going into this thinking I'm gonna see a lot of Joker shit, not really. You're going to see a lot of Arthur Fleck shit. And I think that really... Time will tell. I don't know if I would go that far, but this is a movie that I think the approach that Todd Phillips takes to making the Joker film, to making this story for comic book films across the entire genre right now, especially with the more shit that Disney keeps buying, the more stuff's going to feel the same. And you get a movie like this, just like when we got Logan. It's like, wow, this is what a comic book film can be. We need more of these. The score is good too. It's subtle. It's not something that you're gonna be, downloading and jamming out to in your car or trying to put into YouTube videos, or it's not gonna be one of them scores where 10 years from now someone's gonna play a piece of it and you're like, oh, that Joker score from 2019. It's not like that. It just enhances whatever emotion he's trying to convey on screen. That's good filmmaking. And I also liked how the movie very carefully takes Batman shit and puts it into this. You could take the words Arkham, the words Gotham, Bruce Wayne, Thomas Wayne, these subtle little things that are here and there in this story, and take them out of this film completely, and you could call it something else, and you could pass this off as just a movie with Joaquin Phoenix playing this demented character, and nobody would say, this feels like a Joker movie. But if you start adding in these little things like Arkham State Hospital, saying that it's start to be this bleeding problem throughout this era, and referencing Thomas Wayne and seeing Bruce Wayne and everything like that, that small little pieces of this story that clearly sets it inside of the Batman universe, it adds to it, and it doesn't take anything away. It doesn't feel like this could be something else, but they had to shoehorn in time. Has just enough little Easter eggs, just enough connective tissue to this lore, to this overall universe that so many of us love and cherish, that there's just that extra little bit of good that a comic book fan rather, can walk in, watch this movie and go, oh, that's that. Oh, that's how that, I don't like it. I guess what I'm saying here is that this is not a DC universe, Batman universe overshadowed film. This is literally a standalone story that is creatively placed in that universe. Now moving on to the mixed aspects. The overall thing for me is just the tone that they go for. While it's totally merited in telling this story, and while I like the fact that it has the balls to go as dark as it does and keep that tone throughout, this movie is literally like miserable person for 2 hours. It's just a guy getting back in the third act. And it's a taxing experience. There's movies that have things like that, but they also kind of battle it with the light. That's why a lot of times you have these movies, you have Batman there to suddenly be the force fighting the darkness. And they're telling the story without Batman, and it's totally good visit. This is a great film, and this is a very unique comic book film that I think should be made more often. But on the flip side of that, the rewatchability factor, just because of the really dark, dour tone, not so high.
Is this a joke to you?
Now moving on to the negatives, and maybe this should have been a mixed aspect, but it was a pretty strong negative for me throughout. Even though I really like the unique take that they took on the laugh, the explanation of the laugh, why it sounds the way that it sounds, why he does it so often, and it's not just like this shtick because it's the Joker. I like that, but they use it too much. There's in my opinion, way too many scenes that is just Joaquin Phoenix laughing uncontrollably. These scenes where he's just sitting there laughing, or like they'll cut to him in a random scene and he's just sitting there laughing, and it's like, we understand. You've explained this well. We get it. Let's move on. And the other one is not the fault of this film, but it is the fault of everybody that has seen this film. You guys are overhyping the hell out of this movie. This movie is very good. This movie is a very good comic book film. This movie is definitely in the top tier of the year, and this is definitely and I'm not the only person saying this. Again, people love to say that if I criticize a movie at all, I hate it. You hate every movie. Expectations. Walked in knowing all the things that people are saying about it. Best, most disturbs. Just in the past couple months. I mean, shit. We just got out of Rambo a couple of weeks ago, where that dude's a little bit more grounded. It's a little bit more real, and maybe that's why it hits people a little bit more than a glorified films. It's not like Joker has suddenly just broken this mold. Holy shit, this guy's killing people in a movie. How many movies have you motherfuckers seen? So I guess the message there is just temper your expectations. This movie's very good. I think pretty much 90-95% of the people that walk into this movie will enjoy it to some it is. Don't walk in expecting it to be like the movie, the end-all be-all of 2019, because appreciate the fact that we still get movies like this. These are the types of comic book films that I do want to see at least once every 2 years. Like, you can go off, and especially even just within the DC universe, still carry on your own, collective universe, your own cinematic universe, and audiences will be able to separate the two. As long as you set up the rules, and as long as you explain yourself, people are so the comic book thing where you have this universe, this free-flowing story that's going on, that's interconnected with all these characters, and you can branch off and do movies like Joker. You can branch off and do movies like Old Man Logan, these little standalone stories that work great as standalone stories, and I'm glad that the Joker has proved that. As long as you have a great story, you have great characters to tell it with, and you have a good filmmaker to bring that story to life, doesn't matter what the fuck you want to do, you can succeed, and I'm glad the Joker has proven that, if nothing else. Just judging it on its own merits, very good movie, very entertaining for how down and dour it is, a very interesting take on this character, led by a great performance by Joaquin Phoenix, a little bit overhyped, a little bit too far with the laughing, and I feel like there could have been a little bit more levity in the film to make the exist to disturb you, and it will. Into madness. Check out Joker this weekend, and whenever it comes to the shelves, go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Joker? Is this your favorite incarnation of the Joker? Do you have another favorite? Did you hate it? Did you dislike the changes that they made to the lore? Seen the movie. So let me know down below your thoughts on Joker, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some social media links, check down below in the video description. I've got 31 on 31 designs, so getting ready to celebrate that all month long. So get that down below and send me a picture if you end up with one of these shirts, so we can get some 31 on 31 or all Top Stream Fever going for the month of October leading up to Halloween. So check all that out, guys. And my Patreon page link is also in the video description, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. So check all that out. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, including past DC movie reviews, you can